TE provides liquids, gases, electrical connections to the second stage, as well as air conditioning to the payload fairing. The first and second stages are both nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. The super chilled liquid oxygen is our propellant oxidizer and is the source of the white clouds that we can start to see forming around
Yes, I'm on my way. I'm mighty glad you stayed.
Falcon 9. That happens when the warm, humid Florida air comes into contact with the cold liquid oxygen. The oxygen heats up and then turns into the white gas clouds that we can start to see. The first stage will be finishing prop loading here in about 15 seconds at T-minus 3 minutes, and the second stage wraps up its prop load at T-minus 2 minutes. At T-minus 60 seconds, we'll hear a call out that Falcon 9 is in startup. This means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. Then, just inside T-minus 2 seconds, we light the Merlin M1D engines. We use TTEB as our ignition fluid. When it mixes with oxygen, it burns a bright green colored flame, so be sure to watch out for that. We then allow the fuel...
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
All right, and there we heard the call that stage 1 LOX load is complete. Stage 2 continues to load its LOX. As I was saying, after we use TTEB to ignite the Merlin engines, we then allow full flow of the fuel into the thrust chambers, and then the engine comes up to power for liftoff at T0. At this point, the Starlink payload continues to be healthy. The F9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket. Weather continues to look gorgeous, and the range has cleared the surrounding ground, water, and airspace, and are green for launch just 2 minutes from now.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
All right, there we heard the call out that stage 2 LOX load is complete. This means that Falcon 9 is now fully loaded with all propellants on both stages. If you look at the shadow of the rocket there on the pad, we can see the shadow of the white clouds that are forming around the pad. Like I mentioned before, that's just the liquid oxygen vaporizing with the ambient air. Now that LOX load is complete and that propellant line is blocked off to the vehicle, that leftover LOX in the lines basically turn into gas and form the white clouds that we see.
Flight computers in startup.
All right, there we heard the call out that the flight computers are in startup. This means that the autonomous flight computer has taken over the launch countdown. And at this point, both first and second stage are beginning to pressurize for launch.
Falcon 9, Starlink LD is go for launch.
All right, there we heard our launch director give the final 30 seconds. There we heard the launch director give our final go for launch. And at this point in time, all systems are go. Let's listen in to the terminal count and watch as Falcon 9 takes our stack of Starlink satellites and 2 ride shares into space.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition and liftoff.
Falcon 9 pitching downrange.
Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from the historic launch pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center, carrying our stack of Starlink satellites and 2 ride shares into orbit. We throttle the engines down in preparation for max Q, or maximum aerodynamic pressure. This is the largest structural load that the vehicle sees during
Supersonic.
This is the largest structural load that the vehicle sees during ascent, so slowing the vehicle down helps during that short period.
Max Q.
All right, there we heard the call out that we reached max Q. In about a minute, we're going to have 3 events happening back to back. First will be main engine cutoff, or as you'll hear it called out, MECO. This is where all 9 M1D engines shut off and slow the vehicle down in preparation for the second event, stage separation. As the name suggests, this is where the first stage separates from the second stage, with stage 1 starting to make its way back to Earth for landing on our
Started.
while stage 2 continues its journey with the third event, SES-1, or Second Engine Start 1. This is where MVAC will light up and begin to propel the second stage along with the Starlink and 2 rideshare satellites into orbit. So just a few seconds ago, we heard the call out that MVAC chill has begun. That's the same thing as what I described prior to liftoff for the M1D engines. We flow a little bit of that super chilled liquid oxygen into the turbo pump of the MVAC engine, helping to prepare the prop system for that super cold fluid to flow through. So there we can see that the engine
Stage separation confirmed.
All right, so on the left-hand side of your screen, we got the first stage, and the second, on the right-hand side, the second stage, and there we heard call out MVAC ignition. We can see that nozzle begin to develop a lovely orange glow as Earth rotates in the background. On the left-hand side, we got first stage deploying the grid fins in preparation for the drone ship landing. In just a few seconds, we're going to have fairing deploy. Love that view of MVAC. And there's our first view inside the payload fairing. There we have visual and call out there that fairing separation has occurred. As a reminder, we will be attempting to recover those fairing halves today with our recovery ship, Sheila Bordelon. And of course, we're going to be recovering the first stage with our drone ship, utilize a view for today's recovery attempt.
Acquisition of signal, Bermuda.
As Stage 2 heads towards its targeted drop-off orbit, Stage 1 will execute 2 burns in order to make its way back to Earth. The first is the entry burn, where 3 of the Merlin 1D engines will reignite. This helps to slow the stage down as it re-enters the upper part of the Earth's atmosphere. The second burn is the landing burn, and this is a single-engine burn that brings the vehicle speed down rapidly in order to land on the drone ship. We do this at the last minute to conserve as much fuel as possible. If you're just catching up with us, we had a successful launch of Falcon 9 from Kennedy Space Center's Pad 39A. On the right side of your screen, you're looking at a live view of Falcon 9 Stage 2 as it delivers our Starlink and rideshare payloads to orbit. On the left, Stage 1 is cruising back to our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, in the Atlantic Ocean. Our Starlink satellites are in LEO, or low Earth orbit, at around 550
Both vehicles are following
kilometers.
nominal trajectories.
Most satellites are around 36,000 kilometers in altitude at GEO or geostationary orbit. When the satellites are further from Earth, the round-trip data time between the user and the satellite, also known as latency, is much higher, resulting in poor performance for activities like video calls and online gaming. About a minute out here from entry burn. On the left-hand see the first stage as it cruises in. Falcon 9 is equipped with 4 hypersonic grid fins positioned near the top of the first stage. the stage uses nothing but the grid fins for steering as it makes its return to Earth. They orient the rocket during reentry and guide the rocket during descent. Occasionally, you'll also see some white puffs. These are nitrogen gas bursts for attitude adjustment and control. Now we're about 20 seconds out from entry burn. As a reminder, this is a 3-engine burn that is meant to slow the first stage as it hits the thicker parts of the Earth's atmosphere.
Stage 1 FTLC saved.
Stage 1 entry burn is started. And stage 1 entry burn shut down.
And we just had a confirmation of stage 1 entry burn cutoff. Now we're about 60 seconds away from landing, and at this point the vehicle's traveling around 900 miles per hour. This really puts the deceleration into perspective. In the span of less than a minute, we will have slowed from twice the speed of a jet all the way down to 0 as the rocket lands. There are a couple of events scheduled to happen in close proximity here. The stage 1 landing burn will begin and will finish its burn in about 25 seconds. And then stage two up in space will stop firing about 15 seconds later, at which point we'll enter the first coast period, so prepare for that in about 45 seconds.
Stage 1 is transonic.
Got a great view of both the first stage re-entering into the Atlantic and stage 2 as it continues on a nominal orbit.
Stage 1 landing burn is started.
At a start of stage 1. As a reminder, we may lose coverage of the vehicle as it attempts to land on the drone ship.
Stage 1 landing burn is started.
At a start of stage 1. As a reminder, we may lose coverage of the vehicle as it attempts to land on the drone ship.
Landing legs have deployed.
Landing leg deployed.
Stage 2 FTLC
On the
saved.
left-hand side of the screen, got a beautiful view of a successful landing. This marks our 81st successful recovery of an orbital class rocket and the 6th recovery of this particular booster.
Tico.
And there we had second engine cutoff 1, or SECO 1. Waiting for a confirmation of good orbit.
Nominal orbit insertion.